Good morning, Service Alliance community. How y'all doing today? Alongside of me, we got Brother Doug and special guest, Mr. Rob Jones.
Morning, guys. Morning.
There it is. There it is, Rob. What do you got to say now, man?
I am a real person, not just a computer-generated joke machine.
Not the ever-present heckler.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Like I always tell Doug, it's always in good fun. If I stop, then he has to worry that I might be mad at him.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
You didn't see the cover, did you?
I didn't know. I wasn't paying attention. I was trying to get you.
Go look at that later.
I gotta multitask now instead of
Doug's
paying attention.
No. I've got a couple lines ready.
He spent 3 weeks getting this ready.
I'm just gonna drop a comment, and ADHD boy will launch it. So.
There it is. There is the cover. Jeremy is sharing it for you.
Hold on a second. We have a windstorm, and my wife just said there's a garage in our street. Hold on a second.
All right. Oh, too funny. Well, I'm excited to have you on, brother.
Yeah, definitely.
Customer feedback. It is definitely good to have you on. I know that's something that you and I have actually talked about in the flesh. See, it's not just you, Doug. I can pick on Rob too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Anyway, I know you got distracted, but here's what Jeremy says. And that's the cover.
Oh, well, that was your interpretation, Jeremy. I felt like I was the guy bringing the sustenance after they were done riding. That's all.
Hey, people always think that guys that ride bikes are super healthy. No. We drink beer. We eat all the good things. It's just we do that to support our eating habit.
Yeah, you guys just like the way it feels to ride a bike. I understand. I get it. Yeah,
it's the challenge. So
yeah.
How's everyone's weekend?
Good, busy.
Yeah.
So. Just got, like I said earlier, last week, I'm on PTO this week, so it gave me a little extra time to be able to join. And so it seems like I'm busier at home working on the to-do projects that I haven't been doing because I've been working. So, but no, looking forward to a little downtime to get the week going. So
nice. How about you, Doug?
Well, I was in denial all weekend. I had a technician at like 5 o'clock give his 2 weeks notice Friday afternoon. So, I just had to kind of pretend that I don't have a job and just enjoy the weekend. It went pretty well. So.
Oh, so.
Because his internets are not working
on as well. Just to.
Oh boy, too funny.
Yeah. Whatever.
At least they've come up with the iPhone version of the jitterbug for Doug now. So it's now a smart jitterbug.
I'll stand up for you, buddy. You're probably
thanks.
You're probably one of the more tech savvy in the arena.
I don't even know where you're going with that. It's like in the arena of somebody over 50. What are you talking about?
Of the podcast.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. There's a partner in the Service Alliance group that is technology illiterate. I'll let you figure out who.
It better not be Mike. That's all I'm saying.
It's definitely Mike. That's too funny. So yeah, customer feedback today. What do you do when you get it? The good, the bad, the ugly. I love customer feedback. It shows you where to improve. So it's one of my favorite things. I don't know about you guys, but I always enjoyed the customer feedback. No, that's not true. I enjoy it now. I didn't enjoy it then. I enjoy it now.
Yeah,
I think it's also, I tell techs all the time that get down about something. Maybe they get negative feedback, right? We never remember the 99 customers that are great. It's that one customer that always sticks with us, right? And it may be one a month, hopefully less than that, but it never leaves you. at that point. You can't get over, hey, I could have done this, I could have done that.
Have you guys ever tried to cut the story short from the customer who wants to share their feedback? And because you know what the issue is, what the resolution is, it usually doesn't go well. They really want to hear their story. So
there's no usually about that. They want to hear themselves talk. There's no you cut that story off and you are done.
Yep.
Well, that's the Chicago in you, Zach. I think, what is that noise in the background? Oh, I'm Rob's tail. See, when he gets nervous, his tail starts wagging and it's hitting the boxes behind the seat. Yeah. No, but I find even though we know all the answers, you've got to let them talk it through. And I usually lead with a question that Dean Landers always, kind of recommended I, start with is, help me understand where we let you down or where we failed. And then the whole story comes after that.
Yeah, and you really have to let them play it out. You might know the whole thing, but you have to let them hear their voice in that. Like, they have to hear themselves say it. And I actually have found that when you let them do that, sometimes they'll realize how stupid they sound. Like, because sometimes there is like, okay, that's just insanity. And if they actually hear it out loud, they're like, okay, well, yeah, that was dumb. Here's what really happened. Like, and they'll actually put that out themselves. So it's kind of cool to see.
Yeah, you like it, Zach, you like it when they go, something about, I can't believe you came the same day and you had the part on the truck. I mean, who does, and it's just like, are you listening to yourself? And
right.
But
you wanted to waste another day of vacation time?
Yeah. Really? I haven't had, like some sitcom situation where, they pause and go, you know what, Doug from Action Appliance, I was wrong. They never do that, but it does soften the blow, and they'll start to come around when their ego is in check once they've done the inventory count of all the things that we've tried to do as well as we can.
It's way more subtle than that. You can just hear the tone change. Like when they say something stupid and it actually registers in their head for the first time, you hear the tone in their voice all of a sudden shifts. They still don't admit that what they said was dumb, but in their head, it's like a switch flips and they're like, and now we're going to have this conversation this way. And it changed. And listen, the reality is when you're pissed off, you want to be able to just like get it out and get it done. And that's human nature.
Yep.
So
I think one of the best things I had when I was running service is you have that customer that does just that. They don't realize how unreasonable they actually are being in the time, right? I'll never use you again. I'm going to report you to everybody, wait till you get my reviews on every platform. And then 3 weeks later, they're calling you back to fix something else. And it's like, kind of like the Men in Black thing. Look at this, it's like they totally have forgotten. But they haven't. They did realize that they were being either unreasonable or acting out in the moment. And like, wait a minute, this service was probably some of the best I've had. And then, maybe you get that apology, maybe not. But generally what happened in my case is if you did have someone reacting like that, they didn't go all guns a-blazing and you just never heard anything. And all of a sudden you're back in their house servicing them. And then you're tentatively walking up to the door like, oh, this is going to be and it's like nothing ever happened. So,
Doug, I'm going to let you pray us in, and then we're going to go to the other side of the customer.
Morning, Lord. We thank you for this day. We pray for this holiday season that everything that is important rises to the top. We pray for our customers this week, Lord, in the next couple of weeks, as they may call with anxiety or frustration or panic. Lord, help us be good listeners. Help us be good servants. And Lord, give us a way that we can take care of each and every one of our customers in the way that you've called us to do for this holiday season. And Lord, we thank you for Rob. We thank you for being here. We continue to lift up the healing in their household. And Lord, I pray for his tail, that it won't make much more noise in the podcast. And all this in Jesus' name, amen.
Oh, goodness.
You say tail, and there's literally one behind me here, and
I
you
know
probably
that.
can't see it. Yeah, we're fostering a.
No, when you met in New Haven, I saw your
Yeah.
tail. It freaked me out. I couldn't even eat my pizza. So
It's because it's the lion can only hold their tail in so often.
oh, the lion. I wasn't thinking a lion, more like a possum. But yeah.
Oh, good night. So now we've talked about kind of the crazy of customer feedback, but in that crazy, if you can, as Doug says, not take it personal, and filter through the crazy, what is it that you hear in that feedback, and how are you processing through that? So I feel like you're the master of this, Doug, like really hearing what the customer is saying and then going, okay, how can we improve that? So
yeah, I try to do is give the value or the intensity of the mistake that was made or the injustice, give it even more credibility than they are themselves. And that way that they know that I truly do take it very seriously, because we are talking about some really stupid little things sometimes. Like, I can't believe that he didn't call like he was supposed to when he just showed up to my door. And, they're very, very angry about the whole thing. And it's like, you could dismiss that really quickly. You can just blow that off. I'm really sorry, man, but what can we do for you? It's important to give it as much more value than they give it. It's what I think.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay.
I love that scenario too, by the way. Like that, I've been caught in that, and you can actually spin that feedback, but it helps you create a process from there. But I've done it where it's like, yeah, it was 2 doors down. Like, it was going to take me longer and I make a joke out of it, but it's like, I know that can be really frustrating, but
sure.
Yeah, my stop before you was literally 2 doors down. It was going to take me longer to pick up the phone and call you than it was to just like walk down the driveways to you.
If only that people could assume the best about everybody, they wouldn't be so intense about these little things. But those aren't all our customers unless they read the 4 agreements.
Right.
And I think that also will give you an insight into what your guys or girls aren't doing. Maybe they're getting lazy, maybe they're not doing the policies you've set in place. And if you're hearing that more than once, in a month, more than twice in a month, then that can be something that, in your team meetings or your one-on-ones, you can address that. And like, hey, we've got these things in place for a reason. Our customers expect it because it's a convenience to them. We're relaying, allowing them to be out running errands, doing whatever, and we're notifying them. It could have easily turned into a real negative situation where your tech didn't call and that customer was planning on it. They went to run to the store. Now we've got a no-show and you've gone three doors down, like it could turn into a bigger mess than it actually is. So not adhering or listening to that feedback can also, don't just blow it off,
I think it is so important to listen to that customer feedback. And I've said it before when we're talking about reviews, I don't trust 5-star companies. Like, if all you are is a 5-star company, I don't really trust you, because I want to know, like, where's the poop? Like, where is the junk, right? Like, what are you doing when problems come up? And 4.9 stars tells me that there's been some junk before, and I have a chance to kind of see how you handle that. So I value now. It was harder when, because it was so hard to separate the personal, and I think the 1 and 2 man shows have it the worst, because you guys, like, it is personal. You were the technician that was in the house like that. It is so hard to kind of uncouple the two things. And so listen, I feel for you. I've been in that place as I was closing down. So that is the hardest spot to uncouple that, taking it personal, right? But I think that's when it's most critical. You have to really hear that feedback and begin to improve whatever you're doing from there.
Again, if you're listening to their feedback, and usually I'll just start taking like bullet point notes. And what I'm listening for is everything, the whole kit and caboodle. So if my technician, I hate to give examples to get in the weeds, but if my technician didn't say we were shipping the part to your house, and that upset them, and they didn't know that they were getting it, or whatever, right? Or whatever the issue is, I'm keeping track of where I saw that we failed before they even knew we failed.
Mm.
You know,
Correct.
like, so did they give you the yellow envelope with the shipping policy, card? Did they hand you the parts card? No. Well, you know what? Then I completely understand why this caught you off guard. And what's interesting about it is sometimes they'll be like, well, don't make this about the technician. What are you doing? This technician didn't do anything wrong. You're the one that shipped it to me without asking. And it's like, so they start to defend my technician. And then I remind them, listen, this technician's been with us a long time and he's incredible. But when we all make a few little mistakes and don't communicate well, it doesn't matter who it is, me or my technician, those are broken promises to you.
Mm-hmm.
If we said we're going to do something, then we need to do it. And if we can't, we need to let you know before you find out, right? So taking ownership of the things that they're not even complaining about puts you in I think, a better position with your customer. They realize you've got a pulse, that you care, and that you're looking at it big picture. They're still going to look for some compensation or something in return for your screw up here, and they're going to want this. That happens almost all the time, but that's what we're in business for. It's not about being right, and it's not about being fair. It's about when you screw up, what do I have to give up to get back on track? Because usually a dumb little step was ignored, not because my techs are bad, but because they lowered the priority on it, because we added a call to them. They lowered the priority of their steps. So it's a slippery slope, but I love taking account of everything that went wrong, especially, and letting the customer know where else we failed that they were unaware of.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love when you can get them to start defending your people, because it kind of begins to shift the entire tone of everything, right? Like,
yeah.
Now all of a sudden they're defending you after they were just attacking you.
That's right.
It's like, no, these are areas that we need to improve on. It's
Yep.
The guy's not getting fired, but this is something that we have to make sure that we're doing right every time. Or we have a bunch of customers like you calling us and, being angry, right? We don't need it.
Yep.
We don't need that. So,
yeah. One of the things that I always had, especially like you mentioned earlier, is like, the 1-2 man shows, things like that. I always find we all have friends that are in other industries, right? Maybe in a corporate environment. And I was never in the corporate environment until a few years ago. But I relied on those people before I ever sent a response, before I ever reacted, because, hey, you're talking about me. I know exactly what happened in that call. I know exactly what I did. You're thinking you're reporting this to some big boss of this company, and you're talking to me. I was just there, right?
Yeah.
I always vetted every response I did through someone else. I would send it to a friend, and hey, like I say, in Doug's world, he's that guy that's vetting and doing, or he's got people that probably respond to these things. But as a one-man show, you're doing that response. You're replying to that bad review. So, as Jenny has said many a times, I did the same thing. At least wait a day, right? Give yourself 24 hours to calm down and vet what you're going to write through someone else, before you post it. I was very fortunate to have a friend who is worked in the nonprofit agency, a CEO of a couple companies. So everything she did, she vetted all my responses. Like, nope, that I thought they were perfectly fine, and I'm telling the customer you're an idiot, and politely. And she's like, no, it's going to look like this. It's going to look like this to other customers.
Yeah.
And I quickly learned that, back in the day when Angie's List was quite popular, I started building my business then when it was actually, in my opinion, useful. Right. But in response to the representative, was like, I'm waiting for my first bad review. And they're like, well, what? Like, no, you'll build more customers from a bad review and your response to that review rather than all these good reviews, like Zach said, 5 stars. That's not a real company, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Whoa,
poor Jeremy.
whoa! What
Poor,
if I had
poor,
5 stars, man?
poor Jeremy was taking offense earlier. Beating him up again.
Yeah.
No, I do. I think being able to build that trust with a customer is so important. Now the other side of that is the owners that ignore that, right? So we've talked about actually taking that to heart and figuring out how to make it better and figuring out how to improve. What happens if you ignore that feedback, right? Like what does that look like within a company if you're like, they're just crazy? And maybe they're not, but what happens when you ignore that feedback?
I think I think some of my employees would love that because they don't find that much. Many of my people don't see the feedback. They see it like it's nitpicking and it's not important. So I think I have to make sure that we always respond and take the higher ground all the time. So, a broken promise. If you say, I'll call you, let me look that up and I'll call you back. That's like the dumbest promise to ever make somebody. If you're a technician on the road and you've got 5 more calls to do at 1 o'clock or something, don't add more to your plate. Because as soon as you don't call him back, I'm just doing him a favor. You're not doing anyone a favor. Just assign that to someone else and don't overpromise. So that's where we fail, is we overpromise or we miscommunicate. That's where many of our feedback issues come back from, is that.
Overpromise, underdeliver.
Yep.
Doug is programmed to not ignore feedback. Rob, did you ever ignore customer feedback? Like, oh, that person's nuts.
I never, I want to say ignored it. I may have compartmentalized it, if that's a good word. Like, okay, yeah, you're in the crazy bucket, right? I listened, don't get me wrong. And that's one thing that I think companies, like you say, that are ignoring feedback will put themselves out of business really quick. Or if they're a company that's running at a high volume, it's going to cut down quickly and they're going to continue to decline. Because that, it's one of those things that, everything we do in every service call, and I try to teach techs this, they look at reviews, they look at the feedback being that. The feedback starts in the home. The feedback starts with your initial communication with the customer. You, as a technician, you should be getting that feedback from that customer. Like, I just said this, all of a sudden that changed their mentality, right? It's one of those things that I think a lot of, and this is what we fight a lot in our industry today, especially with younger technicians and the screen-driven, text-happy world, is they don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to have a conversation. So it's one of those things that they're not getting that initial feedback from the customer because they're not opening up those lines of communication early. So I think a lot of our negative feedback we get at the end is generated from the very simple feedback that a technician is getting as he's progressing through the service call. I think a lot of that could be avoided these days if we had better communication on that. So I've driven a lot of those conversations in my work to just that. We could be the best tech in the world, right? But I've always said a technician is 3 people. You're not one. You're a salesperson, you're a customer service agent, and you got to be able to fix it, right? Mm-hmm. So each 3 are very important, but the most important, most people think, is like, oh, I got to be the best tech in the world. No, you don't, because you can't sell it, you can't fix it. Mm-hmm. And so if you're not a good salesman, you're not selling yourself and you're not selling what you're doing, you're losing that communication. So I think that's where it starts. The feedback starts early. Yeah. And if you're not picking up on that, that can be a bigger problem in the end.
We gravitate towards the negative, but the positive as well can be utilized to grow your business. Like a technician recently was trying to fix a microwave right before Thanksgiving, and we had to reorder some extra parts. So he same day delivered from Walmart a countertop microwave. Didn't know he did it. He just did it. And then when he went back to fix it, he took the microwave home and he needed one for his mom anyway. So whatever. Man, he didn't tell me he did it. It was the coolest thing. So at this point, I want them, we're going to use that. We're going to eyes and ears. They all have Amex cards. Is there something that we can do to help? So that was feedback that we got through Google, and so how about this? Feedback should be processed or in the moment to take care of the issue in the moment. And could it happen again next year or next week? And what does it mean to us 5 and 10 years from now? So if you're applying it like plus 1 times 100, I think you're going to find that it has huge impacts to listen well and to take the feedback very seriously instead of putting it aside or dismissing the customer. Because if you deem this as an unreasonable customer, do you think you're going to have any more unreasonable customers in the next week, month, years? You might as well figure out how to deal with them in the wild and come up with solutions and spearhead them. Be smarter than them. Take care of it before it happens. Right?
I love that. that is, we can take that good feedback and we can figure out what our unique selling proposition is, right? Like we can figure out what the special sauce within our company is. And I think too often that gets ignored, right? Like, oh, we got 5-star reviews. We got 5-star reviews. Great. What are you doing with those? Mm-hmm. Like, how are you interpreting that data?
Yeah.
So just
and
always
Doug,
hating me.
Doug, break out the dictionary. I'm getting ready to use some big words here. So they're going to be multiple syllables. So be prepared. So when we talk about feedback in the loop, right? It's, doing a little research and preparing for the topic. It's like the feedback loop is a self-perpetuating pattern of behavior where the end result reinforces the initial act. Meaning, in our industry, our continued efforts to provide that quality service, care for our customers is always providing us that real-time feedback for our businesses. We, like you said, Doug, we may not see that in the moment, but it's going to generate it in referrals, loyalty from customers, and just overall gratitude. Like with your tech that did the microwave, that customer is going to be supremely happy. They'll never use anybody else. I'm 100% sure of it. Because that's the way I looked at my business. I always carried a microwave on my truck. There was always one on my truck in case I had to loan one out for a situation like that. So it's the way we got to look at it is, yes, there's negative, positive, but you've always got to have that filter on to be able to you don't want to be overly thinking, like you say, you're 5-star all the time with occasional 4. But it's one of those. It's one of those things,
what we're doing, interpreting what we're actually doing right, what we're doing well, and then leveraging that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
it's one of those, looking at it at the critical, right? Is that negative? Is that something critical, a no-go? Like we've all talked, we've all have no-goes, right? And I mentioned this in some of our book club things, is like every technician has warts. You're getting feedback on that technician. What warts can you live with and what ones do you not live with? Mm-hmm. And can they be fixed?
Yep.
And the same is true for us, right? Like, so I think feedback starts on that personal level, right? So how are we as individuals interpreting that feedback, and what are we doing to improve? One of my pursuits in the last probably about 5 years has been really leveling up leadership. And so along the way, the good, the bad, and the ugly feedback is what I've taken to figure out, like, what am I doing really well? And so how do we interpret feedback on us individually, and what do we do with that individually? Do you guys have anyone giving you feedback on your business and your leadership and your, that personal stuff that helps you level up?
mean, one of the things, we're not corporate, so Rob will definitely have something in place. And if not, then he works for a terrible company, but we'll find out in a minute. But, just as a small company, we're implementing, I'm implementing a sort of business processing approach where everything does get evaluated. So after a team lead meeting, everyone has to rate the meeting, from 1 to 5, because feedback is important. So if we're not getting anywhere or somebody's frustrated in a meeting of 6, we might as well get that mediocre score out there and say, so what happened? Why what do you think we could have done better? Instead of just putting our head down, getting in the weeds and trying to get what we want done single-handedly with people just listening. That's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
But how does Samsung do it, Rob? Are we allowed to say Samsung? By the way?
Yeah. It is. I'm not representing them, but yeah, I mean that's who I work for, and I'm proud of it actually. I know there's a lot of
why are y'all getting defensive, dude? It's okay.
No, it's just the mindset of most in the
corporate
forums,
and
right?
legal disclaimer.
Yeah.
This is the views of Rob Jones and only Rob Jones.
It's I really do enjoy our method of feedback. We have multiple platforms that we get it from, whether it be from, sorry, I got the dog trying to chew on something. We get, yeah,
not your dog.
Multiple, not only from my leader. I've told my boss many times that having him as a leader, as I've come into the corporate world, has been night and day one of the best things. He's very good at giving me feedback. He backs me if I make a decision. He will let me know, hey, I may not have made that decision. We're following because we it's a decision. And then he lets me know what he does. He shares with me everything we put together and what he polishes after I give it to him, so that I can see what the end result is, not just, hey, give me some work to help me do this. And no, he shares it with me, and I see, and he's training me on a weekly, daily basis, as well as internal things we have at Samsung that allows you, when you collaborate with other departments, that they can say, hey, this guy did this for me. I'm showing him praise, or I'm showing him applause, I guess you could say. And so they're very big on sharing feedback. Fortunately, I haven't had much negative feedback, but generally that is not done in a public environment. They're very good at letting you know if something is not right, but not making it known that, hey, you made that mistake. I'm very encouraged by where I'm at on that corporate side of it. So
that's great. Sounds like a great environment. Saul's feedback is pretty crucial. Obviously, she's not doing a great job because he misbehaves all the time.
Oh, good.
By the way, Rob, how has your experience been while Zach has been reading comments? While he asks you a question that he wants a great answer to, and then he starts reading comments and giggles through the whole thing. Like, I can be talking about how my mom died 1.5 years ago, and he's laughing at what's Saul.
I'm used to it. See, you've got to be able to move in many different directions. Now that the wheelchair only goes one way that you're in,
Wow. There you go.
Or the walker, yeah. You got to put some tennis balls so you can pivot quicker.
No, I think that personal feedback is so critical, right? So like for me, I was recommended for a coaching job for BNI, and I had to provide 5 references to them. And like the questions that were asked were pretty pointed, right? And the 5 individuals that I chose are people that have given me negative feedback as well as positive feedback. They're people that have helped me improve myself. And so a couple of them came to me, they're like, what do you want me to say? I'm like, I chose you for a reason. Like, you've given me the good, the bad, the ugly. Like, you've given me all this feedback, and I've improved because of what you've poured into my life. So share what you've seen in me. So I think being able to take the actionable steps that other people put in front of us, as well as showing that like that feedback is appreciated. So when you have that negative customer or that positive customer, how are we pouring back into them to show them that like, hey, that this is valuable. We need that. So, and I guess that leads into a whole nother topic that we don't have to deal with, but we can talk about it a little bit here. But it's like when we hear people complaining, oh, I don't get enough reviews, whatever. Well, what are you doing with the reviews you do get? What are you doing with that feedback that you are getting from customers? And if the answer is you're just like taking it as a pat on the back and moving on, well, that's why you're not getting more, right? Like, so what are you guys doing with the feedback that you're getting? How are you showing like we appreciate all this feedback, good, bad, and otherwise?
I think Saul said it best in the comments. That last one about all the customer experience reports. People, I think, would be shocked, and especially people who choose to work with Samsung, who choose don't. Like you say, we see all the interaction right on the webs, and I think they would be absolutely shocked to see how much we deal with every single customer service report. I deal with training technicians, right? That's my main focus. But you would not. I don't think people could fathom how much I deal with actual multiple different platforms of customer reviews we get, and that's part of how we rate each technician. I was mentioning to Zach before we started how busy my week was because we are now starting our January programs, right? We went through and measured all 1,000 technicians that do Samsung only work, and I graded every one of them from A to F on multiple different reasons, whether it be return, repeat, calls, customer service score. So I spent a week doing nothing but that data analyzation around customer service. So I think people would sometimes, I call it paralyzation by analyzation. It seems like that's all I do in creating these reports and things for how we can attack things. But that's we've been tasked this year with care. Our customer care is what is literally in our name now. And that's my division, Samsung Cares. That's our division now. And creating new avenues to show that to the customer when there is a problem. So,
love it. How about you, Doug?
Well, I mean, customer feedback, peer feedback, it's all very important, and it's one of the KPI metrics that we track all of us with, our employees, our technicians. Obviously, the stuff that's negative isn't published, publicly. Goes in a Google form. Anyone could submit an error or feedback about anybody. That goes to a confidential place, and then it's discussed one-to-one. But then how about the great stuff? So we have this thing called Step Up. It's just a program that I put together that is what my son's rec basketball coach would say all the time. Because when they were pretty young, I mean, drills and positioning was not the number one priority, but they seemed sometimes lost out there. So when they didn't have the ball, he would just scream, step up, and guess what would happen? A kid would step up on the guy with the ball, a fumble, or the guy would lose control and he would get it, and it'd make a play, it'd make something happen. So we have a Step Up award and gift card, and publicly announcing that to everybody in the company. And I love it, and I really want it to be nominated by a peer. I don't want to be the one to do it. I want someone else to say, hey, you know what? I just want to give you this feedback, Doug. This technician was really frustrated throughout the whole day, and then I had to give him this extra call, or this customer said they need another hour, and he took it really well, and it meant a lot to me. And guess what? That's pretty much what I'm going to put in the Step Up and send that out. So we got to celebrate. We got to celebrate amongst each other those victories as well.
I love it.
Definitely.
That's such good stuff. Well, guys, that has been customer and employee feedback for the day. Appreciate you coming on, Rob.
Thank you, guys.
glad you came along. And you're not going to see Doug and I next week. We're not coming on. It's Christmas. You guys all enjoy your Christmas with your families. We're going to be enjoying Christmas with our families. Rest of the team will be on this week and next, and we will see you New Year's Day. At least I will. I don't know about Doug. We'll see if the old man wakes up on New Year's Day.
Let's bring our wives on, Zach. Is that good?
Vale's like, I'm gonna pummel you, and my wife will be staying the
It could have
same.
been pummel. It could have been, yeah, sure. We'll find out. Yeah, you guys on January 1st.
We'll see you guys New Year's. Have a good one, guys.
Yep.
Have a good one.
Have a good one.